If I may be as bold to say so, there's two kinds of people. Those that don't get the Ineos Grenadier range, in this case the Quartermaster, and there's those that do. And my dad worked in the Ordnance Survey all his working life. So I have a respect for vehicles like this because as a boy I was taken to work and I saw vehicles like this in the environment they're intended for, and I've seen them do what they can do. So if you're expecting me to give out about the fact that the centering on the steering isn't great and it's a little bit choppy on the motorway, this is not really going to be that kind of review. I mean, look where I brought it for starters. This Quartermaster version is sitting on Goodrich tyres. We have a snorkel, not necessarily from a wading point of view, but just keeping all the dust and dirt that might be ingested lower down, depending on where you're bringing this vehicle. This is the Quartermaster version, which is a little bit longer and obviously has a pickup area on the back of the vehicle. However, payload, as much as it will take a Euro pallet, is not up to standard required to get the VAT back on this vehicle. So you still get a very usable payload. You can still tow 3.5 ton, but it's not quite up to scratch if getting the VAT back is what would incentivize you to buy one of these vehicles, because they're not cheap. Engine wise, two straight 6 BMW options, common rail diesel or a petrol. And fuel economy wise, they're kind of in and around the same. I've been experiencing anywhere on this diesel from 12 to 14 litres per 100 kilometres. And it's, you know, it's kind of to be expected for a almost 2.8 ton vehicle. These are not small buses. It's awkward getting it into car parks. It will stick out beyond a standard car parking space, and it's not something you want to bring into a multi-storey car park. That said, there will be people who will want these vehicles in a lifestyle capacity, just because, why not? People who maybe have a few more quid than would get you into a Ranger Raptor or a Volkswagen Amarok in Panamericana spec. Indeed, speaking of spec, this is the Trialmaster version of the Quartermaster. So with all that intro explained, let me bring you on a tour of this massive vehicle. So everything that's on the front of the vehicle can be easily unscrewed, replaced, as you can see. So these all are just designed to come off, as is part of this part of the bumper. So if you had the winch option, that could be easily taken off like that. Let me just show you then beneath the vehicle. So there's 4 different options of springs on the front and 6 on the rear. As you can see, even the steering bits of the car, everything is designed to be robust, and the scuff plate on the front, same idea. The wheel bolts, most vehicles will have 4. This has 6. There's the Fieldmaster and the Trialmaster. This is the more off-road version of the vehicle, so springs here, depending on what you have spec'd on the car. So again, the winch will have a different spring setup on the front. This is the snorkel that I mentioned, so this comes on the Trialmaster version. Again, take the doors off if you wish. These little strips on the side, they're for fitting accessories like drinks holders. You can put a full canopy on the side of this vehicle if you're going to be sleeping beside it. This particular car has the roof rack version on it. This car has the bars on the back, which are a black matte finish, LED lights, which maybe you don't expect to see in a retro vehicle like this. Again, more plates on the lower part of the car. The overhang on this is a bit longer than the normal off-road vehicle, so that might be more likely to come in contact with the earth. Couple of towing eyes, obviously a tow bar here rated for 3.5 ton. Spare wheel goes in here, obviously. As you can see, conkers have, for some reason, magnetized to this vehicle. So you can use this little groove, I suppose, to store tools. There is a power outlet just in here. There's cup holders, or, well, kind of, in the tail of it, and this is good for 225 kilos on this part alone. Now, you could use it as a seat, but it is also quite high off the ground, as you can see. Ladder frame chassis on it, and again, depending on which packs you have, these could be red, could be grey on the Rhino pack. We've just gone for black in this vehicle. But as you can see, again, all of the piping, the arms, they're huge. And with all that in mind, you can be fairly confident that the Quartermaster should be stronger and more robust than even Man United's defence. With the Jim Ratcliffe connection, I couldn't resist. Sorry. Space in the rear of the Quartermaster is fairly limited, as it is in a lot of pickup trucks. A little bit of a groove in the back of the seats, but you're really not going to put a middle passenger anywhere unless they have no legs. Thankfully, there's at least some use of the space down here in terms of there's a plug, 2 USB-C charging, A and C, and 2 air vents also. I mean, you could probably rest your feet on the central armrest as the middle passenger, but that's not very safe. But there are 3 seat belts, so somewhere along the line, someone has intended you to be able to sit there. Other hand, plenty of height in the roof, and the seat back position is fairly straight up. Again, it's a characteristic of most pickups. The rear window is really great size though, so it kind of helps with the feeling of sitting fairly upright and kind of claustrophobic. And it's always going to be choppier in the back of these vehicles. And I'll get into the level of chop when we take it onto the normal side of roads. It's also quite a tall vehicle, and this one doesn't have side steps, so getting in and out can be a bit of a challenge. It's quite a mix of modern, beautiful, really comfortable Recaro seats, all the physical controls you'd want, including a toot horn as opposed to a louder horn, which might scare the sheep away. This takes up an awful lot of space, so there's parts of the engine that creep into the right-hand drive vehicle, which means your foot here is sitting higher. I'm not particularly tall, so if you are, that might be an issue for you. Not an issue for left-hand drive vehicles. You can have your feet as normal. And the play and the steering is well documented. You are constantly correcting it on the road, but then when you get this off-road, it's very, very welcome. There's a bit of rubber mats for sunglasses, phones down here. All these buttons do actually do things, including your volume, your climate control, which is particularly sensitive, and it feels delayed. So you turn it down a bit to be cooler, and it doesn't quite kick in, and then you turn it more, and then you're too cold. It has heated seats, a compass, and there's lots of cool settings in here, and attitude, oil temperature, tire temperature. You can even use off-road mapping, so it can follow a path back to where you left off from, and it will record that. The speedo is only here. There's nothing like that in front of you. That's where all your warning lights come on, you know, and your diff lock is on, and certain normal technical things once you're looking at this part of the screen. Sun visors are really big and useful. There's these nice skylights that do actually open, but it's a 2 meter tall vehicle. If you open them, it gets taller again. There's grab handles everywhere. There should be. And there's an iDrive style control here for getting into the screen, although you can use a touchscreen as well. And the gear shifter also is straight out of a BMW. So if you've driven one of them, you'll get to use it. No cooling box under here, however. I think that would have been a cool feature. There's some charging access down here, and you can lock that, which is also handy. Couple of cup holders and a physical handbrake, which is obviously very important. On the diff lock, so start up the vehicle. It's quite a physical system. You can feel there's things moving when you move this. There's no electronic assistance, and again, for longevity, that's probably a good thing. So you have to put the car into neutral, foot on the brake. Obviously, it doesn't matter if your handbrake is up or not. And then you lift this lever, you pull that down, you'll feel it engage. Sometimes you might have to go again, and then you push it across, and you'll get a beep that will tell you that the advanced systems in terms of sensors are not active. Now you can turn all of those off and your seatbelt warning light off, which is very handy if you're constantly in and out of the vehicle. In a farming capacity, you hold down the off-road button. It's just beside the waiting button. And handy enough as well, there's a little graphic to tell you how tall the vehicle is, just 2.05 meters and 2.15 meters wide. So it's just a good reminder. Your front and rear diff locks are also overhead. You touch them twice to activate everything. Same with the auxiliary power. You can add on bits, they're already pre-wired for it, which is handy. They're just flicks of a switch and you feel like you're flying in a plane. And at night time, that passenger light actually lights up like the seatbelt light in an aircraft, and that's very cool. So once you have this, you'll get a little L engaged. You can see that the diff lock is clicked in there. If you want to put the rear one on, you just tap that and tap it again and it will flash and you'll get confirmation that the rear diff lock is activated. And then you can push the gear shifter across like you're manually doing an automatic gear, and just you can see you can notch that up to 1 or 2 low and it will properly crawl. So quite easy to use once you've got your head around it once or twice. So I'm in off-road mode. Hit that button, you can turn off the belt. All the safety bells and whistles are also all gone. A very easy way of doing things. Now you can leave it in drive, or you can obviously manipulate the gears with very low 1 and 2 gear ratios. And obviously the hill descent will kick in now as well. And while it's kind of hard to tell from this angle, I'm obviously using the drone to give you an idea of what it's like coming down. So let's give it a whirl. A little bit of brake pressure there. And obviously very, very simple. So you can feel the hill descent now kicking in. So let's try a little bit of wading then, and again just gets on with the job, no problem. So it's in low 2 now and very, very easily just crawling up this significant incline out of the water. Plenty of grip, hard to see over the nose just right now, but as soon as we reach the crest we get a better idea and the nose dips down. You don't want to over rev it, just want to maybe sort of 13-14 kilometers an hour. Let this climb up even in third. It feels quite at home. That off-road mode, by the way, will work up to about 40 kilometers an hour, even just starting off now from a standstill in third. Sorry, it's gone back down to second, but still very, very comfortable. It's not overly revving, and yeah, it's just getting on with the job. Interesting bank angle there, just to get going. More water, dip the nose down quite low. Again, this is where the steering, you actually appreciate the steering being the way it is, so you can put it through the trails and the tracks and know exactly what way the vehicle is heading. More water right down into the nose, and up we come again. There's a proper drop now. Whoa. A lot of sheep looking at me going, what the hell is he at? Is he meant to be here? Yes, sheep, I am. So going to hit the normal road now. So we hit off-road once and that's it. All the lights will disappear. You're back in high. Diff locks are off. There's actually, it's like pre-flight checks in terms of what you need to check on. One thing that is obviously missing from the car is blind spot, and for the size of it, I mean, you can see the edges, you can see the nose to a point. Maybe when you're doing some of the off-road stuff I've done today, not so, but certainly from a maneuverability point of view, it's okay, but it would be nice to have blind spot in terms of a safety aid. All the other ADAS stuff is on the vehicle, including speed sign. You can turn that off, and if you want to save it as a favorite, you can do it that it's always off. Interesting to note though, not once today was there a bit of wheel slip? Was there any loss of traction whatsoever? Did one wheel get caught? None of that carry on in the car. It just got on with it. And at least we have the diff lock, different settings for that. If that had happened, and I've no doubt we would have got out of trouble. Now, this is just your standard road setup, and don't forget, it is on BF Goodrich tyres, so they're true off-road tyres. And yes, there is a bit of, as we like to say, light chop in the vehicle. That will happen in any sort of off-road vehicle, particularly with, non-fully road-going tyres. But I can live with it. What is more annoying is your left leg constantly being slightly pitched up, resting against this center column that is just not exactly built with comfort in mind. Now, if you are over 6 foot, as I mentioned, you'll need to double check that. And yes, you will grow a little bit weary constantly correcting the steering. I'm not going to do it because it's dangerous, but if you were to let go of the car, it will not straight away veer to the left, but in terms of this, and ironically there is a center point on the steering wheel, but you will find yourself just constantly readjusting. The turning circle, it's been well documented, but just in case you haven't seen any other videos of the Ineos Grenadier, it's quite a tricky turning circle. From full lock to lock, you're not going to make this in your, whatever you do in a normal 3-point turn or even 5-point turn in the car, you can add another at least go onto it if you're trying to maneuver this thing. It does get significantly noisier at sort of 100 kilometers an hour. The roof bars will start to catch the wind and there'll be a whistle off that. It's not really a vehicle that you want to be kind of doing more than the motorway limit. This motorway is 120. Anything too fast, and it's not that kind of vehicle. Delivering fuel economy, so officially the figures from Ineos are 12 litres per 100 kilometres in the diesel, maybe rising to 14 in reality. But on a longer journey today, I have done about 13, sort of 12.5 to 13.3 litres per 100 kilometres. Size of the vehicle, 2.8 tonne. You can kind of live with that. And yeah, turning the steering wheel, not a huge amount of action is happening. Although you still need to avoid people like that Skoda Yeti that pulled in front of me far too quickly. And it's actually that type of driver closing in on gaps on motorways that really aren't big enough. He's now swerving from left to right to the middle lane. You can only assume they're on the phone. It's just very, very frustrating to see it. It is hard to work out just right now. The vehicle is too new to see how reliable these are going to be. They are expensive. There is no doubt that you can buy a Toyota Hilux and it will do much of the same job, but life is boring when there's less choice out there. And if you've got the funds, we're only here once. And it definitely is a compromised vehicle when you're driving it on the road. And as I said at the outset of this review, that is really not what this vehicle is for. And with that in mind, it is probably a bit of a niche vehicle. It's not really something you're going to bother spending the extra money on just to go to and fro in a building site. I don't really think it makes sense for that. But if you have a true off-road use for it, perhaps you're watching this in one of those OPW bodies where, you do actually have to winch things, tow things, get this thing up mountains and massive inclines and declines and weight it. Then that is definitely where it's worth a look. I mean, yes, you could use it as a lifestyle vehicle. I just think it'd be a bit of overkill. But steering issues and left leg issues aside, I've actually really enjoyed it. And as long as there's a BMW straight six engine under it, it is a case of, in some ways, what's not to like. Let me know what you think of the Ineos Grenadier Quartermaster. Would you go for one? Would you convince the boss to go for one? And would you go for a commercial one if that was available to you in terms of budget? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for coming with me this far on the video. There's ways to support this independent channel. It's just me in the links down below. I'll talk to you in the next one.